Hey there, people. I've had a request or two to do a quick video comparing the newly released Masterwork staff to existing magic weapons, and this is something that's sort of usually outside my wheelhouse. It's not the type of video I do, and quite frankly, I'm not all that intelligent, I don't think, at least, to do sort of comparison videos and crunch numbers. But I thought that this might be something fun and interesting to do. Different from my usual style of just sort of speaking extemporaneously, off the cuff, but we'll give it a shot. And so today I'm going to compare the Trin Masterwork staff to the Fractured Staff of Armadyl. I'm going to do a few kills at Arch-Glacor just because I can do a few different kills at different HP thresholds and see sort of what a difference it makes between the two weapons. As you can see, if I look over here, obviously the Augmented Masterwork staff is tier 99, and the FSoA is only tier 95. And if you look, I don't have the innate mastery unlocked yet for the FSoA. I have not gotten the Genesis shard of Essence, or whatever, the Essence Genesis shard to use on that yet. It's sort of a lower priority for me. So it's actually a great comparison to make because it's truly tier 95 stats versus the tier 100. However, of course, the FSoA has its really powerful spec. So I'm going to do a few kills with each of these weapons, and generally they're not all that different. The FSoA has a few better perks. It's got Aftershock 4 and P6, while this only has Aftershock 3 and P4. I don't think it's going to make or break, so to speak. I don't think these kill times are going to be vastly different based on the perks alone. I do expect the FSoA to outperform the staff, but people wanted to kind of see what it looks like, so I am going to do some kills camping these weapons. No switches, except for maybe perhaps a quick switch with a wand and my Coroming switch here just for minion clears. But I'm not going to be using the Sanctum of Rebirth wands. I'm not going to be doing any of that. I'm going to camp these two staffs, and we'll take a look at some kill times at 0%, 100%, 250%, and 500%. So let's jump into it. So here on my first kill, the 0 enrage kill with the FSoA, you can see that I really screwed up. You'll notice I've got Sun up, I've got Tsunami, but I didn't even use the spec itself, and I didn't realize it until I kind of was like, wait a minute, I'm not doing any damage here. But as you can see, as I sort of work through the kill, that I wind up getting not the best time. A lot of Arch-Glacor really depends on the order you get mechanics in. The kill wound up being about 1:20, and that was with my screw up, not using the instability spec at the right time. Compare that to the 0% Masterwork kill, and obviously I don't have the spec going on, and aside from a misclick on detonate there, I just sort of went with a typical damage rotation during the flurry phase. You can see he used this much later, and this is typically when I'll do my sort of damage dump. You can see I'm hitting very high, very consistently with the staff, and although I'm missing sort of the extra hits from the crit stacking, this kill wound up being just about the same length. Although you do have to remember that I did screw up the 0% FSoA kill, but so far we're not seeing much of a difference really. So now we make the jump to 100% using FSoA, and this time I didn't use I didn't wait until the flurry to use my spec, but you can see I remembered to use it properly this time. I've got Sun, I do have Tsunami. It looks like that new time spell reset my Tsunami, but you can see I just did a complete damage dump. I dropped him pretty quickly once I had that spec going. I think he started arm cannon mechanic. He was at about 150, and then I basically drop him right as arm mechanic ends, right before I got this minion spawn, which was lucky. And now if we look at the Masterwork 100% kill, you can see I messed up and I didn't record the entire kill. It was actually quicker though, by a second. I do believe that mechanically it was about the same. So that just kind of shows that they're really not all that different right now at these low HP thresholds. So this is 250 with the FSoA first. If we look at the time, you can see that I got unlucky and he used Flurry last, and then I got Flurry into a minion spawn, so While I did take out a huge chunk of his health during Flurry, I did kind of get a bit of bad luck. Again, the order of these mechanics really will sort of determine how long things take. That being said, this is a touch slower than I usually do at 250, but we've got about 2 minutes and 14 seconds for this one. Now, this here is the one that surprised me the most. I did get a little luckier. As you can see, I went into Flurry at about 45 seconds, and I am completely just adrenaline dumping at this point with, my thresholds and specs. I think I got lucky here, and I get a double wild magic. I get it reset thanks to the that new aspect that they added. I can't remember the name of it. Time anomaly, I think. And I damaged him hard. I got a lot of great lucky crits, but generally speaking, this is abnormal to get as lucky as I did. But my general impression right now at this 250 range is that the Masterwork staff is actually overperforming what I thought it would do. My FSoA kills haven't been perfect, but you can see there I just had a bunch of crits. Again, crits on the wild magic. The crit stacking is really helping, and it's making that raw damage really add up because it's so much higher. And this kill probably would have been faster if I had been able to drop him before the pillar mechanic started. I probably would have shaved up a few seconds, but this kill was, again, actually faster. I would say substantially so by a few seconds, which generally did surprise me. So, right now Masterwork is overperforming, but let's look at 500. And this is where we see something a little more typical. I was a bit late on the recording here. I screwed it up again, but this is a typical adrenaline dump. You can see I am just going ham with, I got FSoA up, I had Sunshine up, I had Tsunami going, and I think when I went into that, he was at about, I want to say like 400 or 500 health. So I really just lit him up with those, with that typical sort of Sunshine FSoA rotation. The order of the specs was, again, not ideal or perfect, but it was more typical for about 500%, a 2-minute 30 kill, a bit on the slow side. Again, these are not sort of my best kills. And now we've got the 500 Masterwork kill, and this was a lot more typical of what I would expect to see from the sort of the get-go with the Masterwork. Again, I think it overperformed, and I sort of reiterate, the order of the specs does matter a lot, but generally speaking, I feel like the staff is performing well, and it is surprisingly competitive with the FSoA, in spite of my somewhat inefficient kills. It definitely, it's better. It has the raw stats, so to speak, and you can see here, I was hitting pretty well. At this point, this kill sort of drags for a while. I go into the Flurry eventually, and I do a lot of damage during that time. I get some big crits. I had switched to a better EOF. It didn't make sense to have ABS EOF, so I switched to my Gothic spec for adrenaline dumping, and this kill probably would have been faster had I not gotten the minions right at the end, and it probably would have been comparable. So, at the surface, FSoA is looking not really much better than the Masterwork 2-man staff, which surprises me. But I want to go, and I'm going to do a couple more FSoA kills, because quite frankly, I think those were bad, and I can do better. And ultimately, I found that I really couldn't do it. At 500%, just camping FSoA, my kills were typically around the same time as that Masterwork kill, barring one where I got a lucky rotation and things went a bit faster than normal. So, my final thoughts are that I actually believe that the Masterwork staff kind of overperforms. It did much better than I thought it would, compared to the FSoA, and it's passive and all that. The raw damage, of course, is higher on the Masterwork staff, because of course it is. It's a level 100 staff compared to the level of the staff of Armadyl. As to which I would recommend getting, it sort of depends on your playstyle. If you like to switch, do you like to camp? Masterwork staff is, in all honesty, not particularly expensive. The hardest component to get is the seismic components from Virago. And if you're an iron, that can be tricky. if I had to really make a recommendation, I mean, truly, ultimately, you want to own everything if you can do it. The fact is that this game is getting built around making switches and toggling your weapons and jumping around and juggling. If you had to make one investment, though, quite frankly, I would say get the Sanctum weapons. They're much easier to camp, and the spec is extremely powerful, and they're really not particularly expensive when compared to the FSoA and to the Masterwork staff. Another viable alternative would be to use the Fractured Staff along with the Masterwork staff, because of the way the spec works, you can cast it and then, of course, switch weapons, which is part of the reason that Jagex is planning on adding a passive to the a passive to the FSoA to make it less of a switch. I mean, for now in its current state, and I'm sure other people have crunched these numbers better than I have. Like I said, I don't really have the sort of brain for crunching numbers a million different ways and getting sort of, every. I can't even think of what I want to say, of sort of doing the math a million ways and getting truly the best outcome. If you have the stuff to get the Masterwork staff, or you have almost all the components and only need to buy, say, the seismic weapons, get the Masterwork staff. It's still incredibly powerful, and if you crit stack and have lots of buffs, it will perform very well. It also requires less sort of maintenance than the FSoA. The FSoA requires a very specific sort of build and then dump to where you get to your spec and then you adren dump all at once for huge damage. The Masterwork staff is very consistent. Again, quite frankly, I think all of these are worse off than the Sanctum of Rebirth weapons, which you can see I'm using here now, and it's just the damage is crazy, especially if you get resets and things like that. Ultimately, though, I mean, this is RuneScape. You want to juggle, you want to mix and match your weapons as well as you can, because that's just the way that's the direction the game has gone. And if you can see if I switch now to my Masterworks, staff, I'm hitting higher because of Sun and because of my Sanctum stacks, the corruption stacks there. Those are my thoughts, at least. They're all somewhat equal, actually. I mean, Magic is sort of the worst style at the moment, and there's not a huge gap between weapons. If I were to have made a similar video with, say, the Bow of the Last Guardian and the Saren God bow, the difference would be enormous. Or not so much a Noxious bow, the Last Guardian bow and the the Masterwork bow. We would see a huge difference, I think, because the bow is so powerful between both the spec and the passive. So that's it. I hope you kind of found this somewhat helpful. Again, I'm sure other people have done much better dives into the weapon. I only did so because I had a few people ask me. Hope you enjoyed the video, found it helpful. Take care.